The wind blows through the earth, and the wind picks up seeds and deposits those seeds. Picks up good seeds and then picks up bad seeds. And we are called to be careful gardeners. That is to say, how do we cultivate the good seeds and eradicate those seeds which are not good at all? I am thinking of seeds as ideas, and I'm surprised sometimes at how some ideas are swallowed whole and other ideas are rejected without any consideration at all. And I'm thinking especially of spiritual ideas. I was glad when Lex mentioned that God has many names, many manifestations. I've been thinking this week about a little baby that was born into a Hindu household. His name was Siddhartha, and his last name was Gautama. And Siddhartha was born into a very, very wealthy family. He was born into a family that was princely, royal. And his dad wanted to protect Siddhartha from all the bad stuff in the world. So he kept him inside this perfect little world where everything was controlled. Temperature with the flick of a switch, lights on and off, all the good stuff. He did not want his little boy to see what was actually going on in the world. He wanted to protect his little boy. But one day, when the boy had grown to a fair number of years, perhaps adolescence, with the servant, he persuaded the servant to go for a little ride outside the gates. Well, they went outside the gates, and the little Siddhartha saw people laying beside front doors of temples, hungry, broken, bleeding. He saw people wandering the streets, lost, confused, uncertain of what was going to happen next. He saw misery of all kinds, and the misery came into his heart and changed him forever. When he was a young man, he left his father's house and he went on a journey of discovery. And in this journey of discovery, he began to put off all worldly things and to begin to desire only spiritual things. Now, this person is well known to all people on the planet in a basic way because he became the Buddha, the enlightened one. And the main teaching of the Buddha is so important for all of us just now. And I, as a theologian who has been dealing with Scripture for all of my adult life, believe that what the Buddha put his finger on is very important for all of us, especially now as the world seems to be going to, if you'll forgive the phrase, hell in a handbasket. Desire. Now, the psalmist speaks about desire too, but his desire is strictly for the love of God, the perfect love of God. His heart longs for the love of God. His heart desires the love of God. And he testifies to that in the psalm that he has written. He wants to be filled with God's Spirit so that God's goodness can come into him and overflow him and go out into the world. The psalmist knows that we have the potential for being distracted by the 10,000 ways out there. The psalmist has his heart wholly focused on God. And that's an encouragement to us. An encouragement that in our troubled times, in our troubled world, the wise thing to do is to begin every day by looking to God. To end every day with gratitude to God for the goodness of the day. To thank God for all the gifts that we have been given. The psalmist sees life rooted in God. And the psalm, which we heard this morning, encourages us to lift up our eyes, to pay attention. What is God about in the world? Now, the James text is very interesting. First of all, there were some folks like Martin Luther who did not want James in the Bible. James wasn't nearly holy enough. James wasn't about all the supernatural stuff. James wasn't all about the divinity of Christ. James, some people suspect, was the brother of Jesus, a Jewish man. But James's gospel, his epistle, teaches us about how to live the way of God practically in the world. How to be focused on God so that the love of God helps us get through whatever circumstances may be confronting us. James talks about good things and bad things happening. When you're sick, pray. When you're happy, sing. James says that whatever the circumstance of your life, in your spirit, be rightly related to God. And in being rightly related to God, your heart will be filled with peace, your heart will be filled with joy, and your heart will be filled with generosity. James knows, just like the psalmist, that a right relationship with God is sufficient to overcome any darkness that might threaten us. And of course, it's harder to pray in times of darkness than it is to sing in times of joy. But these are the right and the left hand joined in the heart of God. We experience both. And in contemplating this, I thought about the old marriage vows. I'm going to love you in sickness and in health. I'm going to love you in joy and in sorrow. I'm going to love you for better or for worse. And that's the heart of what James is talking about. I love God when the sun is shining, and I love God when it's pouring. And the love of God when it's pouring helps me get through those gray, messy days. Now, the Gospel of Mark is an encouragement to us. The Gospel of Mark has Jesus. Excuse me. I'm just getting to be 68 years of age, and my wife, Barbara, is starting to notice that my brain is getting a little bit slippery. And just now, my brain said, what were you going to say about Mark? And the other part of my brain says, I haven't got a clue. I should ask you folks, what was the text about Mark? Okay? You can't remember. The Gospel of Mark is about Jesus. The Gospel of Mark is about Jesus being light in darkness. The Gospel of Mark is about Jesus casting out darkness. The Gospel of Mark is about Jesus inviting us to a life of trust. And in that trust, we find security. And in that security, we are made able to stand firm. We are made able to stand strong. We are made able to stand confident no matter how hard the wind blows, no matter how hard life presses against us. And the Bible is full of such testimony. One of my favorite stories is when Paul and Silas are in prison. They've been locked up in chains. They've got their heads in a stockade. They've got their feet in iron. And what are they doing? They're singing. And they're singing with gratitude to God. And what happens? The chains fall off. They are liberated. The door opens, and they walk out of that dark dungeon. God is in the earth. We often think, where is God in the earth? And the answer is in the psalm. God is in my heart in the earth. And then there's a Jewish teaching called the Concord of the Brook. Because we might be tempted to say, well, there's love of God in my heart, but I'm only one. What can I possibly do to make the world a better place? But as you go out and do what you can to make the world a better place, you are joined with other drops of water. And these drops of waters become a little puddle of change. Then it becomes a stream, and the stream flows, a stream of change. Goodness, kindness, generosity, honesty, truthfulness. These come into the world, and the stream, as it flows down, becomes a river, and the river fills out to be an ocean. And the rabbis knew that each one of us must seek out a right relationship with God. It won't do to come to church, listen to the preacher, throw a little bit of money in the plate, and think we're okay. And I don't mind folks who do that. But what I'm looking for is folks who want to take the gospel into their hearts and let it grow there like a good seed. You remember the story of Johnny Appleseed? He just walked, scattering seeds, and never looked back. But over the years, orchards and orchards and orchards. Who knows? But the one kind thing you do for some friend or stranger met along the way, that one small thing may change everything. A smile, a kind word, a listening ear, caring hands, accompanying feet. Now, Mark has just come back to me with the punchline. There's a pretty awful thing in Mark where he says, if your right hand offends you, cut it off. If your right foot offends you, cut it off. If your right eye offends you, pluck it out and throw it in the fire. And it talks all about hell. But Jesus is one who resorted not to literal things. Jesus did not resort to fact. He resorted to metaphors and parables. If what you're doing is getting in the way of a good life, get rid of what you're doing. If where you're going is getting in the way of a full and happy life, get rid of where you're going. If what you see is giving you grief in life, is giving you torment in life, don't look at it anymore. Turn off the news. That would be my bottom line on that one. We have the opportunity, just like an athlete, to perfect our ability to assist others find their way in this sad and troubled world. We have the ability to cultivate our generosity. We have the ability to cultivate our patience, to cultivate our kindness, in the same way as we've cultivated everything else in our lives. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is to have desire in your heart. But have desire for the things of God. Have desire for the love of God. Long for it. And know that all the while there are 10,000 voices calling to you saying, desire this, desire this, desire this. Just sign on the bottom line and you can have it. And then you can get it. And many, many people are indebted because of that desire. What I'm going to say to you is so simple. Desire God. And if you don't know anything about God, desire to know about God. And how do you do that? Read, talk with your friends, come to church once in a while. I believe that right now, just like the sun came out of the clouds this morning, that light has the power to overcome darkness. The darkness of sorrow we feel in our hearts, it takes time. The darkness of the world, it takes time. But you in your small corner, and I in mine, we, all of us together, can bring the change for which the world is so very hungry right now. Grace and peace be with you as you contemplate these things, and hopefully as you let them grow and bring forth fruit in our world. Amen.